Yeah. What is happening, everybody? It is time for another MLB Live Before Lock. Eric and I bringing you guys into the weekend with almost every single team playing on the main slate today. We got a 14-game main slate to break down for you guys. So do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also have an offer for you here tomorrow, the biggest UFC pay-per-view of the entire year. So I'm going to give it a second because I see people are coming in right now. But anyway, tomorrow it is the biggest UFC pay-per-view of the year. It is International Fight Week. Usually International Fight Week happens in the middle of July, but not this year. This year it is taking place in June. So I wanted to make sure I set up something for you guys. So if you guys do sign up for any of our MMA Sims packages, so our core or max package, the weekly or the monthly package, and if you check out with the promo code UFC, super easy to remember, just 3 letters, you're going to get 50% off any package that you choose to sign up with. This offer is going to be expiring tonight, so take advantage of it now before time expires, and I'll be reminding people about this as we go along here. But yeah, Eric, 14-game baseball slate. There's a lot of options to choose from. Do you have any general overarching thoughts before we start getting into all of it?
Yeah, we've got some high upside pitchers, and nobody's expensive really outside of Logan Gilbert. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, the one thing that is for sure, and I know this just from a betting perspective, and, you know, I was just curious where the line was going to come out at. Yesterday, I was kind of working through Dylan Cease, San Diego, and ended up just jamming a lot of his strikeout stuff. It's gone up like 60 cents, 70 cents since last night, where you could get it at like minus 115. Just an absolute ridiculous line. But he's going to be so popular in DFS, and it is still pitching in Cincinnati. So I think there's some really fun leverage opportunities. I think there's a lot of fun angles to kind of take, fun lines to take when it comes to pitcher. Let's get into it.
Somebody asked if that was us in the graphic. You know, I guess you could make a case that looks
right on the left.
I would say the
my leg is inside of you, apparently.
Yeah, the physiques might be a little bit optimistic, but yeah, otherwise I think you could kind of make like totally coincident, because this is just what the AI spit out for me when I was giving it some directions. But yeah, I guess you could make a little bit of a case that the guy on the left looks like me after a buzz cut, and the one on the right looks like you a little bit. Not really that much, but you know, like you could kind of see it. It's coincidental, though. Do you see it at all?
I'm in a little better shape. Don't worry about that. I mean, I've been going to the gym like 3 times a week. Look out.
Also, his mouth opens wider than
that. I was waiting for
yeah. I can see it.
I love AI. I love the random comma after UFC. Why would we want a comma with promo code UFC comma? What? Why? Like, how dumb do you have to be, AI, to not figure that shit out?
I was making this before. I didn't even notice it was there until I blow it up. But anyway, you guys get the gist here. Promo code UFC for 50% off an MMA package. Deal is going to be expiring later. Remind you about it later as we go along here as well. But Eric, just because there's so many games on the slate, I want to know, first off, are there any games that you are writing off for any particular reason, whether it be weather or it's just a game that you want absolutely nothing to do with, that you've either removed a game from the Sims or done like a negative ROI boost or anything along those lines?
Not weather-wise at the moment. It looks all right. I mean, Atlanta, you always know this time of year you have chances of getting pop-ups. Kansas City, this time of year, you have chances of getting pop-ups. We don't have Coors Field. That bailed me out with no Yamamoto the other night because you have pop-ups. It's summertime, sweet summertime. And as such, you know what you're dealing with whenever you play pitchers or stacks from those situations. Now, obviously, pitchers, they're the ones that are the most affected in those type of scenarios, because it's generally like a 45-minute hour delay that you're going to run into, and then the bats just show back up and they're fine. And then the pitchers just go off into the southern hemisphere and they bring out another arm. So those are the kind of things that you can keep in mind. But no, that would be the short answer, is I have not made any kind of alterations to remove anything. I certainly have spots that just suck. I think there's a couple of game environments, like I'm not all that enthusiastic about Yankee Stadium with the weather there. We're much cooler up in your area there with the wind blowing in today. We also have a couple of other games that just, like, does anybody really want to go nuts with Miami and Arizona with Yuri Perez on the mound and Merrill Kelly on the mound? I mean, stuff like that. But otherwise, no, I haven't done anything.
Yeah, all the games today, but nothing that I have real significant weather concerns about. I don't even know how this is possible, but it has been 100 degrees here every day for the last week, and then it was in the 60s today. The complete bizarro stuff. I figured it was gonna have to rain to make that happen. No, it just became like it was nice, but like cool weather. So a little bit different of hitting conditions in New York. Gonna start talking about the pitchers now, and I do find it interesting, Eric, that for a slate that has 14 games, there are 3 pitchers that are really popular, and that's making up really the majority of our ownership here. We've got Logan Gilbert, 31% owned. Dylan Cease is 36% owned. Will Warren is 35% owned. And then you've got, some ownership going to Jose Soriano at 17%. But yeah, you've just got 3 pitchers that are pulling more than 100% of the ownership for DraftKings on a slate of this size. And then you've got the remaining pitchers just kind of spread out what the field is doing with the rest of the guys. So let's get into it. Pay up options. Logan Gilbert, Nathan Eovaldi, Merrill Kelly, Sonny Gray, Dylan Cease. They're all $9,000 to $10,000 a piece. We've got the 2 that are popular here that we already touched on, where you got Cease at 36%, Gilbert at 31%. Do you have a preference between the 2 chalky pay-up options in Gilbert and Cease?
Yeah, Dylan Cease by a lot. I love Dylan Cease today. It's impossible. You look at his strikeout projection, 6.5, heavily juiced towards the over now. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. And this is a Cincinnati team that there's just a ton of upside for Dylan Cease, who's performed well in some really difficult matchups as well. I mean, he had to face the Dodgers back-to-back, didn't matter. He overall still found strikeouts, 11 and 9 in those. Took on Kansas City. Obviously, we know that isn't as good of a strikeout matchup, but 110 pitches in the outing. Everything about Dylan Cease is just lining up spectacularly. And I don't think we have crazy worries about what Logan Gilbert's workload is going to be going forward, but it is worth noting that he's only 2 starts back. He had 84 and 90 pitches, and despite the fact that he has the highest swinging strike rate on the slate by a pretty considerable margin, Dylan Cease is still 15 pitches, 20 pitches more of upside probably, and that's the tiebreaker for me. I get that this Seattle, Texas game environment is not very good in Arlington. This ballpark is a cavern, and I am on the under 7.5. It's now 7 juice towards the under. So I feel good about that. But do I feel good about him from a fantasy perspective? Not as much.
Yeah. So for me, and I mean, you could see it in the Sims as well when I ran everything on screen here, where C showed up in nearly 70% of lineups and Logan Gilbert 27%. So well overweights the field on Cease and the most represented pitcher in my first Sims run. And Logan Gilbert actually came in slightly underweight to the field on him. And I agree with that. I think that this is something that we could see people push back on, is people will say, Dylan Cease has been way worse on the road than at home this year. I definitely think that's something that people might say if they go ahead and look at the data, just in terms of the ERA, because Cease is a 2.76 ERA at home. It's 6.26 on the road. And this is also a very hitter-friendly ballpark. But you look at the underlying numbers, Eric, they're basically identical. If anything, he's been slightly better, actually, on the road than at home if you look at the underlying stats. Because keep in mind, when you're at this point in the season, and kind of actually the entire season, as long as the baseball season is still kind of a small sample size for pitchers in some respects, because they're making 25 to 30 starts a piece. So then it's 15 home starts, 15 road starts. But listen to this. Dylan Cease at home has a 3.25 FIP. On the road, he has a 2.74 FIP. And then the XFIPs, 2.46 at home, 3.17 on the road. Strikeout rate, 29% at home, 29% on the road. Walk rate, 9% at home, 8% on the road. He's more or less been the same pitcher at home versus on the road. He has just gotten some different luck that's happened in each of the scenarios. Have you seen what his strand rate is at home versus away? It's very bizarre.
I'm going to say no, because I haven't seen it, but I know for a fact that his strand rate was north of 85% once upon a time, a month or so ago at home it was.
82% at home, 53% on the road. That's the entire,
what on the road?
53% on the road.
That is not good. That's very bad.
That's the entire difference in the ERA. It's just made up in that one number right there. Everything else, pretty much exactly the same across the board when you're looking at the strikeout rate, the walk rate, and all that. It's just the strand rate is different. So Dylan Cease, if people are going to look at those home road splits and just think that means that Dylan Cease has been terrible on the road this year, True, the results haven't been all that great, but it's mostly been a little bit of good luck at home and a lot of bad luck on the road. So Dylan Cease, I think he's going to be fine on the road going forward. He's my favorite overall pitcher on the slate. I will say of the three popular options, he probably does have the biggest risk factor just because he's in, as Eric likes to call it, Cincinnati Small Park. But more often than not, I think he has a pretty good outing here, generates a good amount of strikeouts, and our data likes him a whole bunch as well. Logan Gilbert, I kind of see it the same as the data as well. I understand why people are getting to him. I think he's a reasonable option. But of the three chalky options that we have to look at today, Eric, he's my least favorite.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Cincinnati lineup and about some of the things that have changed that make it so much better for strikeouts today. And we've just seen that start to climb and climb and climb. Austin Hayes is back today. Austin Hayes is very good at hitting, but he's also very good at striking out, right around 25%. That is a huge replacement. And that was kind of the big thing I talked about last night is I didn't expect Santiago Espinal to have a spot on the field anymore because Christian Encarnacion Strand, they like him a lot more. And Espinal has been a guy who's been up there, and Trevino has been a guy who, has been catching quite a bit. Those guys are the two most strikeout immune guys on the team. They're sub 12% strikeout guys. You're replacing them with Stevenson, who's been at 35%, just ridiculous, batting sixth today. And you have Austin Hayes showing back up, batting cleanup, 25%. That is such a shift in the paradigm of what Cincinnati's been. And this is kind of my biggest issue when people just clump together, oh, Cincinnati has XYZ strikeout rate against whom? Well, every day you're going to have a different catcher or, a lot of teams that'll kind of intermix, catcher or maybe Cal Raleigh or Stevenson DH all the time because they do. You're going to run into situations where there's one guy who doesn't strike out and one who strikes out a ton. You got to keep this kind of stuff in the back pocket for you. There isn't a single batter I have, if I'm looking at this correctly, that has under a 23.5% K rate in that entire Cincinnati lineup besides TJ Frieda leading off. It's ridiculous.
Do you like any of the contrarian? And not that, Uvalde's contrarian, Merrill Kelly 10% owned, Sonny Gray 10% owned. We will try to find some places to differentiate our lineups. Merrill Kelly, Sonny Gray, Uvalde, are those any of the spots you like to get different with?
So Merrill Kelly's a bet that I like. I don't love him from a DFS perspective. My wife talked me into limiting my lineup exposure, so I'm playing 40 lineups. I had 300 reserved. I had to send the old DraftKings email because I was like, these are not going to get undone. But she saw my tweet. I was making a joke. I thought it was funny. She found it less funny than I did. So that was a bummer. But anyway, so I'm playing 40 lineups tonight in one big lineup. And right now, Merrill Kelly, not really a consideration at 9,600 for that big lineup. I really like him. I like his over 5.5 strikeouts. I don't understand the line movement that came overnight from that. It went from minus 115. You could get plus money, and now it started buoying back the other direction. But this is a Miami team that, despite what you saw yesterday with 12 or whatever, ridiculous game against San Francisco, I know they're not going to strike out a ton, but I do think that there is an easy path to him just finding some strikeouts throughout that Miami lineup that, he's been the best of these Arizona pitchers. I mean, you had a great outing from Eduardo Rodriguez against Chicago, and, Zach Gallen's fallen off a cliff. Brandon Pfaadt's fallen off a cliff. I think they'll bounce back in some way, shape, or form, although it doesn't look great right now. This is the guy who's got to be their ace, and I think he'll continue to be. Merrill Kelly is really good at pitching. I expect with the roof closed over the summer to see some positive regression for some of these Arizona pitchers, but probably talked enough about a 5% guy that I currently have in one of my 40 lineups.
So I want to just clear up a little bit of confusion in the chat. The promo for the UFC promo, that is for MMA, that is not for MLB. So sign up. The promo code is UFC, and that is good for 50% off any core or max MMA package, not MLB, because at least one person misheard. So maybe somebody else had misheard as well. But also, I thought a pretty astute point. What was that?
Don't put the comma in. UFC. Done.
Pretty astute point as well by News God earlier. If that looks like anybody in the photo, it does look a little bit like Jay Kari.
Oh, on the right? Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah, I can see that being Jay
On
Kari.
the left, it definitely is you. That I don't know. I feel like, again, you just wanted to have a foot up your ass, apparently.
No. In my urethra. Look a little closer.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I didn't know. It looks like that leg's wrapping around in some unique ways.
Guy's been my friend for years. He doesn't even know what I'm into. Gotta be a better friend than that. By the way, how does it happen that how does the conversation go where your wife shuts down your DFS volume for the night?
Oh, she came in screaming at me. She knocked on the door. So I tweeted out, you might as well just pull it up at this point. I mean, it's whatever, but I literally tweeted out that I had already made 54 bets. She didn't care about that. She knows that I bet a lot, but like, she's like, I know what you do. Because whenever I make a bunch of NFL lineups on a Sunday and then we go out and do something, I'm on my phone the rest of the night. She goes, there's no late swapping. I'm putting your phone in my bag if you decide to play 300 lineups tonight. So I basically, if there's a late scratch, if there's anything I need to maneuver around, I have no access to it after 6 p.m. tonight for the late slate. So I don't think it'll be a problem, but also that's bullshit. But welcome to my life.
Do you haggle the amount of lineups at all? Is it like going to a fair where she's like, no lineups today, and you go 200 lineups, then she goes 5 lineups? Then is there a back and forth?
No, there's definitely some haggling going on. There was a fee 500 sold, and it was landed on 40 with a big lineup. Girl was set. Hey, fuck you, boss, bro. Here's the thing. You're not married. If you're married, you know exactly what this is like. Also, this is my job that I do every single day. She has to deal with this in person all the time. And imagine just being single and when you're on your phone doing whatever. I remember, multiple times before we lived together where I could do whatever I wanted all the time. But there comes a point where you pay the piper. You have to pay the piper. And she said specifically yesterday, she's just like, yeah, I'd really like you to not be on your phone tomorrow night at dinner, because it's like our neighbors down the street that they just really, whatever. It is what it is. Come on now. Eric, where's the dress code? Also, fuck you, Einsteinium. This is not funny. This is a true state. This is what happens. Wow.
Yeah, some decent observations from chat here. Not inaccurate. But listen, he got some lineups in today. He was allowed to do a little bit of DFS. I have to say though, also, I don't really know, at least for myself, whether if I'm playing 300 lineups, 100 lineups, 50 lineups, for me, that doesn't reduce the amount of phone activity I have at all. Well, it's what I'm willing to lose. I'm willing to lose $100 not looking at my phone. I'm saying this is a clever gambit by you. You've somehow convinced her that 40 lineups is less time consuming than 300 or 150. It would be for hand building.
Yeah, I'm willing to lose $250 today in DFS if something happens after 6 p.m. my time where Jose Soriano gets scratched or God fucking forbid. By the way, I was thinking about this, Greg. The day that Jose Soriano gets scratched might be the greatest money-making opportunity ever, because this is a terrible Angels bullpen that gives up tons of home runs. And Soriano is the best in all of baseball at preventing home runs. Have you seen some of the numbers on like James Wood and CJ Abrams today?
Wait, but why are you expecting him to maybe get scratched?
No, I'm just saying, if it ever were to happen, that would be the first thing I would do, is just jump into the home run market and bet every single national. I would bet every single one as fast as I could for as much as I could, because their chances of a home run go up exponentially with Jose Soriano off the mound.
Gotcha. Understood. Anything else you want to talk about of the pay-up pitchers?
Chat's really mean. No.
That is true. None of them are pay-up pitchers today, though. 8K range. 8K range. Here's what we got to look at here. Brandon Walter, Ryan Pepio, Jose Barrios, Will Warren. He's your chalk at 35%. Noah Cameron, Jose Quintana. My opinion for tonight, if you guys are playing cash games on DraftKings, Dylan Cease and Will Warren, that's your cash game combination. Logan Gilbert, he's the one that gets left in the dust for me. Same for yourself? Yep.
It just is kind of what it is. There's not a lot. I mean, Will Warren, wind blowing in athletics. I don't know what else to say. Wind blowing in athletics, 6.5 strikeout rate. Also, how this lineup was going to show up was going to be a big part. I got to pull up my splits again here, because, I mean, this was just always going to be a chalk spot. This is just ridiculous. He has a 36.5% K rate against righties, and then 24% against lefties isn't exactly nothing. So just going to throw it out there. The ace today, Jacob Wilson, doesn't strike out a ton, so we'll kind of write him off. Brent Rooker showing up, have fun today. Gio Urshela today, have fun today. Willie McIver and Max Schumann, They literally have 5 righties in that lineup against a dude with a 36% K rate against him.
Super chat from 1-2. He wants to know, did your wife let you bet home run props today? And Eric, if so, what home runs do you like today? Just give out one. And where can people find even more of your bets?
Ooh, well, I have 8 of them today, which is a larger number than most, but quarter unit each. So two total units involved in all. But you can find them over in the Lindy and Friends Discord, which Greg is a part of, by the way. He is a friend. He doesn't like to tell you that he's my friend, but he is my friend because I literally put it on the Discord name so that he would have to say he is part of Lindy and Friends, which is great.
I think we should rebrand Lindy Friends and One Enemy.
That's fair. Lindy Friends and a cuck. There we go.
Lindy Friends and one online troll.
Oh, there you go. But anyway, Lindy Long Balls, that is over on the OddsShopper Short, and it's also over on X. Yes, I had a fun play on words with the name, but people tend to like it. And hey, we've been doing really, really well, quarter unit per play over the course of the entire MLB season, unless it's just a crazy long shot plus 1,500 or something, we'll trim it down. But up over 6.5 units for the people, completely free on X.
There you go. Guys, go and check out Eric's Discord package. It's been going crazy lately. I'd say for the last, 3 weeks or something like that. Eric has been on. I can't even make jokes about it. It's just the truth. He's been on the heater of all heaters. And I've seen constantly people mentioning to me about how well they've been doing with Eric's bets. So go check out his Discord package if you have not already. So let's talk about Will Warren and his ownership. You can see here in the Sims where the 32% projected ownership, just like with Dylan Cease, getting well overweight to the field on him. What do you think of Will Warren relative to his ownership, Eric? Because, fairly popular. Do you view it as too high, too low, or just about right?
Too low. I mean, both him and Dylan Cease just break everything today. They're 6.5 heavily juiced towards overs. And I think there's more upside for Dylan Cease personally, but like Will Warren, there is no debating that he has ridiculous strikeout stuff. My issue is the ballpark and the power that he gives up, but it's really good pitching weather. Why are you smiling again? Who said what now?
Go Fies in chat wants to know what your safe word is. It's not a safe word as much as just crying, or at least in my experience.
This is not a fun show so far. We still have 37 more minutes of this shit? 42 minutes of this shit?
Yeah, a little more. Yeah, 42 because of the 7:05 lock time.
Great. That 5 minutes matters today. Oh, boy. Not because I'm going to get in trouble, everybody, but just saying. God damn it. What is this? What is this? What is this? Charles Moran, what is this? I'm wearing a dress? You couldn't even give me Mr. on the front end? Just the dress, and then Mrs. Lindquist with the pants. Yeah.
It would have been funnier if he said Mrs. Lindquist and Mrs. Lindquist.
Melissa? No, bad Melissa. You're supposed to be a friend. You're supposed to be an ally of mine. This is not good. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Keep it going, chat. Keep it going. There's the saying, it's not a marathon, it's a sprint. There's nothing wrong with sprinting a marathon and just going hard for the next, 41 minutes though. There's nothing wrong with that either. You could sprint a marathon at times.
I'm closing. I can't look at this anymore. Can't do it.
Will Warren gonna be playing a good amount of him, and also Will Warren relative to Dylan Cease. How big of a difference do you see in terms of how much you want to prioritize Cease versus Warren? Or are they just both really high priorities?
They're both pretty high priorities. I'm currently getting. Let me find this. So my top 50, which I'll trim down by 10. We've covered that part of the program. Dylan Cease, 70% of lineups.
Why?
50%. 50% literally dead middle on Will Warren. So I see on the screen you've got a little bit. Well, you've got almost the same amount of both. So yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah, just for myself, if I was just picking one, which once again, cash games, I think just go with both. I think they are the two strongest options overall in the slate. If I had to pick one though, it would be Dylan Cease over Will Warren. Will Warren's numbers this year really strong, and it kind of funny. I think there's a similar conversation to be had about Will Warren that we had about Dylan Cease before. Will Warren does have a 4.66 ERA this year, Eric, but a 3.54 expected ERA, 2.87 FIP. Great fantasy guy. He's got a 29.5% strikeout rate. But guess what's done him in? He's got a 65% strand rate for the year. Like the exact same place that Dylan Cease has gotten unlucky. I think they're both going to see improvements in that area going forward the rest of the season. Top 2 overall pitching options on the slate, in my opinion. I think I know a contrarian pitching option you like today.
Oh, you do? Who might that be, Greg? I think you do.
Is it Ryan Pepio?
It is Ryan Pepio. Of course it is.
Yeah, Eric has been a fan of Ryan Pepio for a little while now. As somebody who does have excellent stuff, he's got a 95-mile-per-hour average fastball velocity. Also, you're starting to see his results look a lot better. 3.04 ERA, 3.65 expected ERA. He struggled a little bit with swing and misses earlier in the year. Not the case anymore. He's got that strikeout rate over 24%. His recent form also, I don't know if there was something that was just maybe a little bit off with him at the start of the year, or maybe it was just unlucky that he wasn't getting more strikeouts, because he has had stuff that's graded out really well the entire season. It just wasn't leading to strikeouts. The last 4 starts, though, 8 strikeouts against the Rangers, 9 strikeouts against the Red Sox, 11 strikeouts against the Orioles, 7 strikeouts against the Tigers. I totally understand why it is that you like him today, because I do as well. That's why I said I figure he's the guy you like for a little bit less ownership. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so the big thing that happened is that he had to eliminate a little bit of usage pending his home ballpark. It's a lot smaller, and you go from pitching out indoors at Tropicana, one of the most pitcher-friendly parks, to going outdoors, AAA ballpark, to one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in baseball. It's going to cause a shift in what you have to do to be successful, especially for a guy who's an extreme fly ball pitcher, which is what Ryan Pepio is. But he combated that. If you look at his launch angle year over year over year, it's come down, and this is now the lowest at 17 degrees. And it's like, oh, Eric, 17 degrees is still pretty darn high. But here's the key. What happened was at home, he was using a different pitch mix, the same pitch mix to start the season. Now when he's taking on lefties, he is leading with the changeup a lot more, and it's led to really good results. And if he's locating the changeup, that's the strikeout pitch. He utilizes it against both hands, so it's not like some other players' changeups where it's utilized just against the opposite handness. And then a 29.6% whiff percentage on it. That usage on the changeup went up from the start of the season, where he was sitting right around the 15-20% number, up to 23%. Doesn't seem like a huge shift, but when it is so much better than the slider, when it's a little bit better than the four-seamer, I feel so much more confident with him going into some of these ballparks where, again, Baltimore is still good for lefty power. I do have a Ryan O'Hearn prop that I still like because he gets bat on ball, but the strikeout upside for him, which is what we care a lot about in DFS, it's absolutely there with the changeup.
We have a couple of super chats that have come in, and we'll do a little bit of a preview of stacks here just because a couple of people are asking about it. First, we've got K Jizzle wants to know thoughts on Detroit for tonight. So Detroit going up against David Festa, who's largely been a train wreck in a small sample size this season. He's got a 6.39 ERA, 5.34 expected ERA. Let's see if they're showing up in the Sims very much. The real issue with Detroit, and yeah, they are not showing up in the Sims, very expensive. Yep. So just because of the pitchers, I mean, we'll talk about some of the cheap pitching options here in a second. But I generally like paying up for pitching today. There's a couple of guys that we could make cases for here in a second. But to me, the best pitchers in like the 9 and 8K range, and it is hard to get them with the Detroit Tigers and some of the price tags there. So Detroit for me today, I get it's a good matchup against David Festa, but I just can't really fit in pitchers that I like with the price tags of the Tigers. What do you make of the Tigers as a stack against David Festa of your Minnesota Twins?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I think you probably are going to get an opportunity. First off, the weather. There's inclement weather. They pushed back the start time for this game, so pay attention to that. I think it should be good to go. But just to kind of cover what I'm looking at here, Colt Keith leading off, sub 3K. That is an illusion. Just think about it as an illusion. We have Joey Wentz, who is our long reliever, who always comes in if somebody gets shelled beforehand. So he will get pinch hit for immediately for Jones. Then you also have Danny Colombe, who did pitch yesterday, but I'm pretty positive there are multiple times throughout the season that he has ate a ton of innings when need be. there are so many ways that you're going to want to utilize those two arms against the top of this lineup with Kerry Carpenter, with Riley Green, with a lot of these guys after David Festa goes out. And David Festa has a short leash. David Festa ate a bunch of innings last time out because he got shelled. Then the Twins came back and we still ended up losing 9-8. I was watching that game and wanted to scream at the TV to, hey, at least give us a chance to win the game, especially in the middle of a huge losing streak. But that's neither here nor there. What is that there's massive pinch hit risk for the one value bat, and then everybody else is crazy expensive. Parker Meadows is 3.8K. Javi Baez is 4.2K. You alluded to it. Torkelson 4.7. Wenceel Perez 4.9. This is not a cheap stack. And while I like pieces of it, Kerry Carpenter's 4.3K, hard not to at least have some interest in that against David Festa. I hate the pinch hit risk. As for Sawyer Gipson Long, there's a lot of interesting stuff when you look at his splits. Against lefties, 27.8% K rate. Against righties, 8.6% K rate with a 261 expected ISO. So I think there are definitely very interesting one-offs on the Twins side. I think Byron Buxton, one of my favorite one-offs of the day. That will be, kind of a contrarian outfield option, but pay attention to the weather. And I think that basically covers all of my exposure to that game.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Green, $5,200. Gleyber Torres, $5K. Wenceel Perez is $4,900. Torkelson, $4,700. And like you mentioned, Colt Keith, pretty decent. Like, there's just a lot of guys that are pinch hit risks in that Tigers lineup as well. So
we'll say this. One of my favorite things to do, live bet is second at bat. I've been doing this a lot for Detroit Tigers because remember the day that I tried to bet down on Jones where I said, I bet he gets one at bat against Tampa Bay. He hit a double in that at bat, and then he got pinch hit for in the second inning, which was absolutely insane and asinine because I felt so good about that. Live bet his unders on his second at bat, especially if Festa gets into trouble, because after that second at bat, there's a very good chance we're bringing lefties in for the top of that lineup.
And there was another super chat. Here it is. We got from Jack Flash. Jack wants to know top stacks on the night. Also says he's just showing some love. Jack, thank you very much. That is appreciated. The donation, very much appreciated with the $20 super chat there. So thank you, Jack. So first I want to start with this. When it comes to stacks, is nothing is crazy popular. We have one stack on the entire slate that's over 7%, and it's the Dodgers at 7.5%. So I don't know how you feel about the ownership, Eric. I don't think there's any concerns with ownership at offense. More or less, play who it is that you like at offense, and you don't have to worry about them being super chalky or anything like that. That is the nature of what happens on a 14-game slate where there's no super obvious stack against a crap pitcher. There's no Coors Field game or anything like that. But the other thing I want to bring up here, I want to prioritize cheaper stacks today so I could pay up for the pitchers that I actually like. We've got the Angels showing up a ton in the Sims here. I also love the Angels. Jake Irvin, I do not think that he is good whatsoever. And you've also got an Angels team that, while it isn't a particularly good offense and they do swing and miss a lot, they have power. They have the ability to hit home runs. So when you get some scoring out of the Angels offense, this is a team that relative to the quality of their offense, like obviously I don't know how many GPPs they've won off the top of my head this year. It's a lot more than you would think based on the quality of the Angels offense. But you got a guy here in Jake Irvin who could definitely be got to. We've got the Angels with the second highest odds being a top value stack on the slate today. Jake Irvin, 41% ground ball rate, 5.14 expected ERA, 4.8 FIP. I think the Angels make a lot of sense. Contrarian, cheap. They let you pay up for whatever pitchers you like. That's my favorite stack today. Same as the Sims.
Yeah. Only thing that's a bummer is that you only have two lefties because they don't have any lefties on this damn roster. So it's Shanuel and Lamont Wade. You do have Renifo leading off as a switch hitter. So technically 3, we're not really worried about his power by any means, but I went on a crazy tangent about Luis Renifo and Christian Moore in the premium Discord earlier today from betting purposes. And obviously, that's a big part of my day-to-day, but I was pretty convinced that we were going to see Moore buried back down after batting second out of nowhere, even with Neto on the shelf. And that's exactly what happened. You get a switch hitter up there for Luis Renifo and Nolan Shanuel, who I think is one of the sneakier home runs on the board for today. I haven't bet it yet, but I think him and Logan O'Hoppe probably are going to end up on the card when it's all said and done in some capacity. You just have Jake Irvin with horrible horrible numbers against lefties. 294 expected ISO with an 18-degree launch angle. Even a guy like Nolan Schanuel, who doesn't have crazy power, is very live to go yard here in this spot. Lamont Wade Jr. Is super cheap, at least, even though he's been brutal this year. And he's not exactly good against righties. 17.6% K rate, 173 expected ISO, but sub 9-degree launch angle. It looks a little bit worse, but the Angels are so cheap. It's such a good ballpark that it's hard to really say anything else. I'm glad you're on the same page as me. They're my favorite single entry stack, and they're who I'm rolling out in the one lineup. The one big one.
One other very important question about offense before we get back and finish up pitcher. 1-2 wants to know, Eric, what did your wife cap your Byron Buxton exposure at?
Do I have to give
a percentage? It could be a number of lineups. However you best want to answer. The floor is yours.
16% Byron Buxton right now. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hit the like button, please.
There we go. Also, something else you guys should be doing is checking out our MMA packages for this weekend, because International Fight Week is tomorrow. It is a sick card. You got Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Oliveira in the main event. The co-main event, Alejandro Pantoja taking on Kai Kara France to defend his flyweight title. We got 2 title fights. We've also got Joshua Van taking on Brandon Royval. It is going to be an awesome card. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm going to be playing a bunch of DFS for it. I'm going to be hanging out in Discord tomorrow as well. And you guys can get 50% off our Sims packages, core or max, weekly, monthly, whatever it is you choose, 50% off with the promo code UFC. Easy. 3 letters, UFC. You shouldn't be able to misspell that one. And yeah, just go check it out. Link down below in the YouTube description box, guys. If you have any questions at all about our Sims packages, you can hit me up as well. All right, let's talk about some of the cheaper pitchers. We got a question from Einsteinium in Discord, Eric. He wants to know, what are our thoughts on Horton against Houston? Is Horton a cheap pitcher you like, or are there any other cheaper pitchers that you have your eye on for tonight's slate?
Nope. No Horton. Don't do that. Don't placate Horton. There are a lot of pitchers that you could actually make a case for. We talked about Pepio. I mean, you want to go all the way to the cheap side of things. There's not a lot to mine out. I think Yuri Perez is the most interesting purely because of strikeout ability, but like, I'm not a fan of playing it. I'm probably not going to get to him when it's all said and done. Cheapest pitcher that I currently have is Jose Soriano, who I actually really like, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so Jose Soriano, 18% on. I do think of any of the pitchers for sub 8K, he is the one who makes the most sense. The ownership is there at 18%. If you look at the exposure we got in the Sims here, it's 16%. One other pitcher, too, who I know he's actually in the 8K range, but just because he's pitching against the Colorado Rockies, I think you can make a case for Jose Quintana. It's the Rockies. They're on the road. This offense is absolute dog shit. It is a better offense against lefties than righties, but all that aside, I think just about anybody. We talked about this the other day as well. Just about anybody. It doesn't matter what form they're in. It doesn't even matter sometimes if it's a Coors Field or if they're on the road. Anytime a pitcher is going up against the Rockies and there's a reasonable price tag on them, I think you make a case for them. But anyway, yeah, I think Jose Soriano, he's a reasonable play for cheap. I'm with you. I don't like going all the way down to Horton at all. I don't really think that makes a whole lot of sense. Could I interest you in Brian Bayo at all, or any other cheap pitchers, perhaps?
Brian Bayo, 3.5K prop. No, I actually thought about betting the under of it against Toronto. It kind of is right there on the cusp. I just don't see the strikeout stuff. And Brian Bayo was somebody that I was really excited about coming out of AAA, because my favorite version of pitchers, my entire, like, again, once I got educated in baseball, because I didn't play baseball growing up, it was the only sport of the main sports I didn't really play. And I really got into it in 2011, moving to LA, because Dodgers tickets were free. You could get to the outfield and just go hang out with your buddies. And that was like more entertainment. And I had never lived full time in a city where I could just like get on the 405, be to a baseball game in 20 minutes, be set. But like, I don't really know what to say other than like Brian Bayo's ground ball rate is still fantastic. Those are the kind of guys, ground ball rate and strikeout stuff. That's why I'm obsessed with Logan Webb from a real pitching perspective. DFS, he's starting to come along for the ride. Brian Bayo has a 55% ground ball rate. I remember that looking through it last night. And I get that it's somewhat appealing because he's cheap and it allows for the lineup to look really good from a bat perspective. there's going to be pitchers who put up 25 plus. I find him to be very unlikely to be one of them against Toronto.
There is one pitcher who I am a little surprised you haven't brought up. I mean, I guess maybe I shouldn't say a little surprised just because there's so many different options on the slate, but just because this is somebody who's not pulling ownership, who you have rostered at times. Luis Ortiz has good stuff, wildly inconsistent, but there are some days where he kind of looks okay. Just in the interest of trying to find some other pitchers who I think might end up being serviceable for today. I don't hate Luis Ortiz. His numbers overall for the season, mediocre, 4.3 ERA, 4.53 expected ERA, 3.98 FIP. The one reason, though, that I think that he is at least worth consideration for today, he's cheap with a 26% strikeout rate and no ownership. So if I'm trying to figure out who is cheap with actual upside that people aren't playing, I'm not going to completely look past somebody with a 26% strikeout rate.
Yeah, I have him in 2 of 40. So such is life. I'm much more on the St. Louis side of this one. I've bet Nolan Gorman. I've bet Lars Nootbaar. I mean, this is the famous pitcher. Corey Seager double dong day for me last year. I love Luis Ortiz. He has a special place in my heart. But boy, oh boy, does he give up an insane amount of power to lefties. And with this ballpark, with the wind blowing out to right, Progressive, one of the most wind-affected fields. We've seen power play way up there year over year. And I just want to bring up the splits one more time because the strikeout splits are much better this year. 25.3% K rate to lefties, 26.2% to righties. The K stuff's been good against both, but a 228 expected ISO against lefties. And basically every batter that you're really worried about on the St. Louis side, outside of Contreras, Arenado, who have had moments this season, although few and far between, Donovan, Burleson, Nootbaar, Gorman. Crazy amount of power with all 4 of those from the left side. They've been one of the sneakier teams in baseball, I think, just as far as like their productivity, and you're getting them out of that cavern ballpark in St. Louis. I think Progressive sets up perfectly for those lefties, and Luis Ortiz, yeah, you could probably find 7-8 strikeouts to potentially combat that, but 7,900 doesn't exactly help. I like playing him a lot cheaper with that strikeout upside. I was able to bite the bullet a little bit easier.
Go Tigers in Discord would like to let you know that you have inspired him to pay for whores. Okay. All right. So he is clearly not interested in a monogamous relationship or anything along those lines. So there we go. We've steered him even more in that direction because he wants to play as many DFS lineups as possible. With that said, and you could be doing some damage to your wallet there. That could make it even more difficult to play as many DFS lineups as you would like. But shout out to Go Tigers. Westbrook Forever says that he is going to play Gilbert over Cease in a single entry lineup. He says if for leverage he was to play one hitter from the Cincinnati Reds, who should that one hitter be? One hitter for leverage today for Cincinnati. I guess Ellie by default. He's expensive though.
Yeah, it's got to be Ellie, or I would say Matt McClain, 3,600 batting second. He's got a lot of power. He just strikes out a bunch too. Had a really terrible start to his season. Otherwise, I mean, this is one of the more exciting second basemen. Second base has been a down position across the entire league for the last 2-3 years. He's got to be up there as like one of the most premier guys, young up and coming guys. But Matt McClain, I would say 3,600 if you're talking non-Ellie, who's obviously the fantasy darling.
Ethan wanted to know about some of our favorite one-off hitters. We'll touch on that in a second after we do some more on stacks. We also got a super chat here from Jeff Williams. Jeff says that, congrats to Jeff. Eric's wife is allowing him to play in the 333 tonight. Nice. Love to see that. He is allowed to play Cease and Warren with Brewers and Rays stacks. Thoughts? Cease and Warren, I definitely like them as pitching combination. We've touched on that. I think the Brewers are a good stack. I think Tampa Bay is a reasonable team to play as well. I don't have any issue with that lineup combination. Eric, you or your wife take any issue with that lineup combo?
Thank you for the super chat. Everything looks good.
Yeah, we'll throw that up on screen.
How much time's left? 20 minutes? 20 minutes. Cool.
Yeah, on the dot, 20 minutes.
Great.
20 minutes on the dot. Here we go. We'll make sure Jeff's super chat gets a little bit more visibility.
Oh,
there we go.
There it is. It's awesome. I didn't put my stuff away to not look at the chat, so this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. We should really put more of the messages up because, you never know. Eric might miss some of them. Influx of super chats. Thank you guys very much there. Eric, any other cheap pitchers that you like today that you want to talk about? I know we've bounced around a little bit more than usual today with stacks, but it's just because we've gotten more questions about offenses here than normal.
Yeah, I feel good. Not on the show, but I feel good about my lineups, the ones I'm allowed to play.
All right, let's go ahead and look at some of the stacks here. And I've already talked about the Angels. That personally is my favorite stack for the day. Who's your favorite stack, Eric? Are you on the same page with me as the Angels? There's a different team that you're liking as your overall favorite.
No, the Angels are number one. They were going to be number one. Just they're so cheap. And you get Jake Irvin in a great ballpark for hitting, specifically for lefties, which is a little bit of a bummer. And obviously, I already brought up the Jake Irvin split, so I won't bore you again with that. But just look at the lineup, a 5 implied run total. Mike Trout, 4.5K, your most expensive hitter by a mile. So, let's compare that to a Detroit where people are talking about that. They have identical implied totals in Vegas, identical numbers. If you look at their team total numbers, identical across, but the salaries, 2.6K, Luis Renifo, Nolan Schanuel, 3.6K, Mike Trout, 4.5, Taylor Ward, 4.5, or 4.3, I think it is. Joe Adell, 3.5. Logan O'Hoppe is 3.4K. I don't know what to tell you other than this is one of the easiest stacks to fit along with the pitchers that you want to get to. So the reason that I'm not completely writing off Logan Gilbert, even with the reduced pitch count, he's still showing up the Sims for me there. But salary is such a big part of what we do as well. So don't overlook that. They just look awesome today.
Yeah. Salary is, once again, massively important for this slate because we're liking some more of the pay up options at pitcher. So we have to prioritize getting to some cheaper offenses. Here's one that, let's see, were they showing up in the Sims very much? Let's see. They are not. All right, here's a stack that I like a decent amount for today, Eric. The San Francisco Giants going up against Aaron Savali. His numbers are abysmal this year. 5.03 ERA, 4.78 expected ERA. He also has a 29% ground ball rate with a 13% home run to fly ball rate, which is right in line with his career average, 13.1% home run to fly ball rate for his career. So you got a guy who is in an extreme hitter's ballpark. The ball goes in the air a lot against him. He doesn't get strikeouts. He walks a bunch of guys and puts hitters on base. I think this is a really good spot and a massive park upgrade to get to the San Francisco Giants against Aaron. And by the way, also the Giants, not all that expensive. We got them with the fourth best odds being a top value stack on the slate. Give me some of San Francisco today.
Love them too. You've hit on my two favorites by a pretty considerable margin. Now, this is different because you do get expensive bats, 1 through 6. You are definitely not getting them for free by any means, but you get Mike Yastrzemski cleanup against Aaron Savali. The weather is fantastic. It's one of the best hitting environments on the slate, and it's still sub 5K for every single bat in the entire lineup. So at the same time that it's not free, again, the Detroit comparison is just in my head because they have similar implied totals as well. You're just getting to a team that's so easy to configure and put together. And I mean, Aaron Savali, he must pay for the sins. He must, he can't keep getting away with it. He is not good. He has been sent to the shadow realm for a reason. Nobody cares. He has a 261 ISO against righties this season. The bad times are coming. They're absolutely coming.
Just because somebody in chat had asked anything FanDuel specific, I view FanDuel and DraftKings being really similar. Will Warren and Dylan Cease are my two favorite FanDuel pitchers and my two favorite DraftKings pitchers. The stacks that I like on FanDuel are stacks that I like on DraftKings as well. So, it is true. We haven't said anything specific that we like differently about one versus the other, but ownership's pretty spread out. The most popular pitcher is 15% on Will Warren over on FanDuel. I don't see anybody that I look at on FanDuel and say oh, I like this person on FanDuel, I dislike them on DraftKings, or the inverse. Any difference of opinion from you?
No, Jose Soriano over 17.5 outs is the staple of my parlay pieces today for the Onyx odds boost and a couple of other things that I've talked about in the Discord earlier and we'll be posting after this show. I just think Jose Soriano is a markedly better play on FanDuel than what he is on DK.
Fair enough. Over on FanDuel, Jose Soriano is Oh, you said better on DK or better on FanDuel?
On FanDuel. I like him on FanDuel. So I'm just saying, like, obviously his ownership's lower, but you can only play one pitcher on FanDuel. Will Warren is running away with the position, as he probably should at 8,800. And then Dylan Cease is my second favorite. Logan Gilbert, again, the pitch count thing, I don't think it's a crazy concern the way it was for me the last two outings, where basically capped 85, 90 pitches basically. But Jose Soriano, with the ground ball stuff and the ability that he has to just prevent power from leaving the yard over on FanDuel as well, and his chances of getting over 17.5 outs against Washington at 8.2%, I really like him over there. I mean, he's a pitcher I'm getting to over on DK, but I think he's a better play for FanDuel purposes because the quality start is such a high probability for him there.
Couple more questions from Discord. One here is from Kareem, wants to do like Boston as a stack today. The Sims do like Boston a pretty good amount. They're one of 4 teams that showed up in a double-digit amount of stacks, going along with the Tampa Bay Rays, who've already mentioned we like, the Milwaukee Brewers who mentioned we like the Angels as well. The Red Sox are probably the one team I disagree with a little bit from the Sims, and I know Eric, not a big fan of Jose Barrios. I'm not either, but there's a lot of pitchers who are worse than Barrios that are pitching for today. And the Red Sox offense, so since the trade of Rafael Devers, terrible. Dead last in baseball in OPS since the trade of Devers. I don't even think it's particularly close either. It's like 5, 6, it's like some absurdly low number. Worse than the Rockies OPS since the trade there. I don't know how much offense there's going to be for the Red Sox offense going forward unless they're against a real, truly crappy pitcher. I think there's better teams to get to in the Red Sox as a stack today. But are you going to try to talk me into stacking aggressively against Jose Barrios?
No, I mean, if you just go like last 30 and you kind of look at these hitters specifically, like Roman Anthony's going to be a good hitter. He has a 313 expected ISO against righties in 42 plate appearances. He has only a 156 ISO. Like, he has not been getting lucky by any means. A 442 xWOBA next to a 318 actual WOBA. Like, there's so many things that have gone against him to only have one home run. Part of that was the schedule. I mean, they ended up in like Seattle. They ended up in a couple of caverns there along the way. And not great hitting environments by any means. So I think that might have been suppressing some of what we're looking at. Now you're getting into Fenway. But my biggest thing now is like, we've talked about all this heat that exists across the entire country, yada, yada, yada. It's like 68 degrees at first pitch in Boston today with the wind slightly blowing in from right. This is not a good hitting environment relative to some of the other places that we have on the slate. So as much as I want to go up against my guy, Barrios, I didn't even end up on a single guy against him on my bingo card today, which like never happens. Almost always, everybody knows that it's Jose Barrios day and that we're going to have exposure against him. I have 0 against him today. I think it's a pretty neutral spot.
Jazz G Money is asking, these games getting delayed, are they going to get canceled? I don't think any game is really a risk to get canceled. Even some of the ones you've seen, we already have start times and it's like 15-minute later start time. So yeah, there's no game that I'm expecting to be postponed. Any different opinion from yourself?
No, if it is, I apologize because there's pop-ups that can happen anywhere. But from the inclement weather I'm looking at here, Detroit, nothing looks like we need to worry about like postponement risk. I mean, it's basically Philly, Atlanta, because of how often you see pop-up storms just go over the ballpark there out of the middle of nowhere. Outside of that, I'm really not considering a single thing. And yeah, I apologize if it works out against you there. Obviously, after 6 p.m., I'm probably safe because there's only, 2 baseball games, whatever.
And Eric will be out at dinner, right? So keep in mind this. If a game does happen to get postponed, the silver lining is that Eric will not be able to do anything about it, and we could all chuckle about it inside.
Yeah, that's the silver
it would be
lining from my friend Greg, who is in Lindy and Friends. I repeat, it is called Lindy and Friends.
And one enemy. Lindy, Friends, and one enemy.
Great.
Frenemy. Frenemy. We had that question in Discord as well that I wanted to circle back to from Ethan7. He wants to know, who are some of our favorite one-offs for tonight, Eric? Who are some of the individual hitters who you are liking either to put a big game up? Maybe you don't like a stack as much, but you like them as a one-off. I know one of them for Eric is Byron Buxton based on what he had said before, but who else stands out to you as a one-off hitter?
Yeah, so there's also a couple of like really interesting pieces from the Philly-Atlanta game. Like, there's so much power, and Kyle Schwarber's 5,300. We just got done having Philly get wrecked. Like, they got wrecked against Houston. Thank you, Onyx and the single game parlays, because basically just free money to take over on every pitcher and the under of the game, combine them together and get paid 5-1 across the board on everything. This is much better if you're the Philadelphia Phillies. But do I want to play 5-mans of the Philadelphia Phillies? I surely do not. So that becomes like Kyle Schwarber. It becomes a little bit of Max Kepler. It becomes Trey Turner, who's kind of an interesting option there at shortstop, because Bryce Elder, he is a lot like the Elder Wand. Broken. Harry Potter snaps it. Where are my people at? You guys know what I'm talking about. Elder Wand, this guy sucks. 27.3% K rate against lefties, but a 241 expected ISO against them as well. He's another version of Luis Ortiz to some extent against that handedness, but the big thing is against righties. He can't strike out any of them. He's got a 140 expected ISO against them, and despite the fact that it's been ground ball contact, he must pay for his sins as well. Bryce Elder sucks.
I can't believe you didn't bring up the guy we were talking about right before the show, who I think is probably the best one-off on the entire slate to save salary, with Luis Rengifo leading off $2,600 against Jake
like
Irvin.
I'm playing so many Angels. You said like one-offs, and
yeah. Fair enough. Either way, overall though, I think Luis Rengifo is one of the top hitting options for the slate at just $2,600. So he stands out a whole bunch. Also, like, Landon Raup isn't all that great. I don't necessarily love making White Sox stacks, but if you need to save salary, do you see what the aggregate price points are of this White Sox offense? It's crazy how cheap this team is. There is, let's see, going batting order. You've got Tauchman's $3,400, Midroff $3,100, Benintendi's $3K, Vargas is $3,300, Teal's $2,800, Sosa's $2,500, Noda's $2K, Rojas $2,200, Michael Taylor $2,300. I don't like the guys at the end of the lineup all that much, but if you needed a one-off to save some salary with, like Benintendi at $3K, Vargas, who's actually been not a total train wreck this year, considering how awful this White Sox team is in general. But being able to get Vargas, who's first and third base eligible, $3,300. I do think the White Sox are a team that we could look at to save some salary just because of how cheap they are.
Yeah, the last ones to bring up are a little bit more disgusting, but we're once again getting Kauffman Stadium with really good hitting weather, and the Dodgers exist there. So obviously Shohei Ohtani left on left against Noah Cameron. This is a chance that you can get him at actual meaningful ownership where, you know, he's generally going to be one of the more popular one-offs on every other slate other than this one. But I do think Kansas City has some interesting bats, specifically Vinny Pasquantino and Jack Caglianone. Out of every qualified pitcher on this slate, Dustin May has the highest ISO allowed to lefties at 373 on the season. You want to talk upside? Those are two lefty bats that haven't really met expectations for what we'd have. I mean, Caglianone's supposed to be top three player in top three prospect in baseball. And Vinny Pasquantino just continues to just meander at the first base position. Doesn't really do anything to lose the spot. Doesn't really do anything to excel at the spot. But boy, oh boy, Dustin May, 373 ISO jumps off the page.
Super chat here from Chris Albers. Chris wants to know what we think about Arizona and Minnesota 5-man stacks for today. I don't hate either offense, but they're not offenses I'm prioritizing either. Arizona, Minnesota. Any additional thoughts there? It's not teams that I would play in single entry.
Yeah, I like the idea of Arizona, obviously, but there's no Corbin Carroll, so you're missing the best batter from it. Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte. Expensive right out of the top. Josh Naylor's up to 4.9K. He's been great. 5.2K for Eugenio Suarez, who just continues to just smash baseballs. But man, is it really tough. It's not a great hitter park when you put that roof over top of it. So there's certain home run splits you just have to not concern yourself with. This year, Arizona has some of the loudest sample sizes relative to previous seasons because the roof was open for every home game but one in the months of April and May. That is insane for this time of year in Arizona. So it's going to be very loud sample sizes relative to what's going to happen now over the summer, where it becomes a worse hitter's ballpark.
Between the two, yeah, Arizona's just a tough sell for me because of how expensive the price tags are. But Minnesota, yeah, like Minnesota, I could get behind. Arizona's just a tougher sell for me. And also Yuri Perez, still a very talented pitcher. Wide range of outcomes for him, especially as we haven't seen a ton of him over the last couple of years. I think he should be pretty good going forward, though. So Arizona, less so a team I like.
Minnesota. So good against righties. He's so good against righties. Like, that's the other thing. He gives up like bloop fly ball contact. It's like a 23-degree launch, and it's like, oh, I'm going to bet against him there. He has a .046 expected ISO against that handedness. That's just a ridiculous number. If he does that against righties, he's going to get better. But I still have concerns about like what that workload can be. I still have concerns about how many strikeouts are available in this lineup. He's gotten up to 89 pitches now. He's only 3 starts in. So like he can get over 90. He's probably the most interesting of every pitcher sub 7K to me, but I don't have any of them in any lineups.
All right. We got one super chat here. And so we'll answer this. Then we'll do dong picks. And then it will be Eric going out to dinner in a little bit. Michael Sullivan has a super chat here for us. Pepio and Warren or Soriano Warren with a 5-man Angel stack. So the Warren part, this is just basically a 1v1, Soriano versus Pepio. I prefer Pepio to Soriano.
I do as well. On DK for sure. On FanDuel, I prefer Soriano, as we talked about already. Just his chances of going to the 18 out number and locking you up that. Yeah, I like Soriano. He's showing up in the portfolio for me, but definitely prefer Pepio. I've got 24% of him when it's all said and done. So pretty hefty amount.
Just leaving a good amount of salary on the table if you're doing that 1-for-1 swap. So I guess, it partially matters what else you're doing with that salary. But in general, I prefer Pepio to Soriano. Save yourself some ownership there as well and get a little bit more of a contrarian pitcher. Any final thoughts about the slate in any kind of way? If not, Eric, it's time to talk dongs.
Love talking dong, obviously. I'm such a cuck.
Well, there we go. It is time, guys, for the dong of the day. So go ahead and load up your home run picks in chat. Eric and I are going to bring up ours in a second. I also want to remind you before the show ends that if you guys are looking to play MMA DFS this weekend, sign up for our Sims packages, either the core or the max package with the promo code UFC. Shouldn't be all that hard to spell. And get yourself 50% off core or max weekly or monthly packages. That promo is going to be expiring tonight. So take advantage of it right now, or maybe a little bit after lock, so that you can take advantage of it. It'll run until midnight tonight, but just keep that in your back pocket. Sign up if you're going to be playing MMA DFS this weekend. Eric, who are you picking to go yard tonight?
My favorite home run play for DFS and for betting is somebody we haven't even brought up, Tampa Bay. Brandon Lau, 9.8% K rate against left-handed bats for Sagano this season. A 231 expected ISO. That is a spicy meatball. I really like getting to Brandon Lau and Jonathan Aranda as one-offs, and Brandon Lau going to be playing him in single entry, my dong of the day.
I am going with a hitter from the Angels, because to stack, you and I both like a good amount. Joe Adell. I like going to Joe Adell to go yard today. He has had someone like you. It's been nice. It's been nice. Joe Adell, which people don't know that he is actually related to Adele the singer. It's not talked about. That's why they look so similar. Yep, they are brothers.
I see it.
So, Joe Adell, brothers of Adele the singer. That doesn't factor into the analysis, but just thought that you guys should know that as a little bit of a fun fact for yourself. My computer's about to die, so I'm going to read off these answers as quickly as I can.
Oh, this is fun now.
Yeah, Samir is going with Devers and Ellie De La Cruz. CM has got Wilmer Flores. Andre B has got Donovan. We've got Stanton from Chris Albers. Bellinger from Comer 310. Castellanos from Benny Tingman. He said Matt Castellanos, so Nick Castellanos. But either way, I got the idea there. Nightmare 1993 is going with Carpenter. William Westry has got Devers. Blake Moore's got Ketel Marte. Danny P has got Julio Rodriguez. Brenton Doyle from Sunflower. Jackson Trio from Jeff Williams. Alec Boehm from CPA Joe K. We got Logan O'Hoppe from Michael Henry. Lawrence Butler is the pick from Sir Dodger. Darryl Smith has got Vlad Guerrero Jr. We've got, chat's moving fast now. This was an engaged show. This was one of the more fun, Eric might disagree, but in my opinion, one of the more fun MLB shows.
So much fun. I had so much fun.
Oh, it's terrific.
Die, computer. Die, computer.
It was terrific.
Do it right now.
We've got Comer, a good an old fan of MVP baseball, threw in John Dowd. I remember John Dowd. That was because Barry Bonds wouldn't allow himself to be in the MVP baseball game, so they just made a random guy for the Giants with all the stats that would have been Barry Bonds. So Comer going John Dowd. I got that reference. C Self-Made has got Marcelo Ozuna. Jake Lomazow has got Manny Machado. Clinton Wood 83 also going with Joe Adell. Key Jizzle has got Nolan Arenado. We've got Flim Flam Man going with Hayes. We've got Caminero from Zion's Left Shoe. Kyle Tucker from Marvin H. Steven Jones has got Nate Lowe. And then we've got Hap and Trio from Comment God. I read as many of them as I could, but there was a lot of home run picks in chat. It was moving fast, and we are at lock. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with your lineups. Have a great weekend. And Eric and I will see you guys back here on Monday.